own a little company. It's called Guy That Buys Homes. So I invest. I also sell real estate a little bit for Keller Williams. I've been here for about 8 years or 8 or 9. I love it. Um, this is Amy. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Amy Molea-Koppitz, and I've been in real estate since 2010. I was at the Big Blue Company for a number of years, and then kept going to lunch with Zach, and he kept telling me about all the great opportunities over here at Keller Williams. And so eventually I followed him over, and then I've been following his real estate investing, and I kind of just want to be like Zach. So anyway, we're learning by osmosis. And here's the really cool thing. We all get to learn this together. This is a journey that everybody can be on together, which is super, super exciting. We have so much knowledge and so many people who want to help each other to get wherever you want to be. And that's why when Zach said he wanted to do this wealth building class and the ALC decided we were going to do the wealth building class, we just thought this is a great opportunity for anybody that's really willing to jump in and do the work.
Yeah. Thanks for gave me chills. That's so sweet. That was nice. Yeah, Amy's right. You know, what we're going to do, we're going to start off and just talk about mindset a little bit, which I know it's kind of like, oh, mindset, but it's so important. It's actually more important than the investing part of it. So we're just going to touch on that a little bit. And so if you were here for the last class, we kind of talk about, it seems like every time we have a class, we always end up talking about, you know, paying off debt, mindset. And the reason we keep circling back around is because if you skip all that and go right into investing, you know, you're just going to continue these habits that we all form for different reasons, and it may not end very well. You're just going to accelerate it by, you know, getting into investing and getting into debt. And if you don't have a hold of like how to manage money, your personal finance, your mindset, it's probably just going to not end up well for you. So mindset is everything. I put this quote up here. I don't know if everybody can see it. It says, "Assets feed me, liabilities eat me." And that's a quote by Robert Kiyosaki. So does everybody know who that is? Yeah, everybody? Okay. Yeah, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like everybody knows about that book. It's pretty incredible that so many people do. It's changed a lot of lives. That was a book that I read that had a big impact on me about 12 years ago to get my, you know what, together. And so anyway, I love that quote. So Amy, what do you want to say? Anything?
Yeah, 100% right. It all has to do with how we look at money, right? And how we look at what money can do for us in our life. And for everybody, the level of income that we desire to make to achieve financial freedom is different. Some people can choose to be financially free on $2,000 a month and live perfectly happy. And other people want $20,000 a month, and other people want $200,000 a month. So this is a very personal journey in deciding what your income, what your desired income is to achieve the financial freedom. But financial freedom buys you out of your 9 to 5. So our goal is to help everybody. If you want to get out of working a 9 to 5, real estate investing is going to be the way to do it. It's the most proven pattern to do that. And if you look at every wealthy person in the world, they all have real estate holdings, and a lot of them got started with real estate holdings. And for us, we're realtors, we know what we know about real estate. So it's more of a safe investment for us because we're investing in what we know.
Yeah, totally agree. What does, when we talk about mindset, I'm just kind of curious, like with you guys, what kind of things come to mind just when we start talking about real estate investing and mindset? Is there anything any comments at this point? I knew you would.
What made you think that? Just don't think small. And that's one thing I learned here is that, you know, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. If it doesn't scare you, you're not going to be moved to do something about it. So think big. It should scare you. Be uncomfortable. And think positive. Don't think I can never do that. I've set some big goals for myself that my husband looked at me and said, "Okay, how are you going to double what you did last year?" And I said, "I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I'm going to do more than that." And yeah, it's just happening because I've changed my mind, made up my mind to do it.
Right. I like it.
Is that what you hear about mindset?
Hi. What'd you say?
Is that what you refer mindset?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
can do it.
Like it's changed for me, but like initially it was always, I had a feeling of like something more, like selling real estate. I don't know, you don't sell real estate, right? But a lot of us do in here, or if you have a regular job or whatever it is, it's like you devote so much of your time to it, and it's like at some point you're like, God, there's got to be something that's like maybe a little easier, a little different, a little more challenging. So for me, it was always that pool. So when we talk about mindset, it was like, well, what's that look like for me? Does it mean working less selling real estate because it's crazy all the time and it never stops? Or does it mean, like Amy said, I love my 9 to 5. I'm going to stay here, but I also want to put some money to work so that I'm making money while I'm working. Or so it's just getting those thoughts happening and being aware of like, what would you really like to see transpire over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years? It may be like I have these student loans that are kind of like anchored to my body that just bother me. It may not have anything to do with investing really, but it's just thinking about the things that are maybe dragging you down or things you could improve and just starting to make a plan to work towards that. For me, it was just get the debt paid off, start investing. Why? Because I love selling real estate, but I'm not going to be able to do it for 30 years at the pace I was. Like I have kids, they have sports. It's like, sanity, all that stuff. So it was more of, I just know I don't want to go down this path forever. So I need to come up with another path that maybe works in conjunction with my current path,
The important thing to remember is there's no easy button. So we can look at people who have achieved high levels of success and we want that for ourselves. But we really need to listen to all of the steps that it takes to get there. And it's baby steps. It's a billion baby steps all put together, starting from square one, and then we build on it. And each year we have the opportunity to build and grow and change our pattern and change our thinking. And a lot of it has to do with self-discipline and telling ourselves no, saying no to, there maybe we can afford a big ticket item. We think we can afford a big ticket item, but maybe we say no to that big ticket item so that we can buy a down payment on a rental house. And now that rental house, when it's paid off, can buy us so much more. So it's things like that. It may be delaying what we want now for what we want most for our future, if that makes sense.
So I'm curious because I think this is like maybe the third class or fourth or something. And we always have, I've seen a lot of you guys here already, but does anybody want to share? Is anybody taking any movement forward? Has anybody filled out
You have.
their financial statement like that maybe didn't, because I think that was our first class.
No, but
Has anybody?
I must say, okay, so
I'm curious. I just want to know what people have
you
been
just
doing
want
over
me
the
to
last
tell
couple
them
of months.
my mistake?
No, yeah, share whatever you want to share. Like I'm not.
But you got
So,
rid of it.
I working with an investor, and she wanted to buy several nightly rentals.
90?
And not night.
Oh, nightly.
like
Sorry. I thought you
Airbnb.
said 90, nightly. Okay, yeah.
So we went under contract in this really cute house. And then I thought, oh, I better call and see if. So they told me that there was another Airbnb in that street. So she was not allowed to do that. So I should have called before, but nobody knew that you have to have a license for a nightly rental. So, it was my mistake. I could have stayed quiet and let my client buy the house and then get stuck with it. In my mind, I was thinking, I want to invest. This is a really cute house. It's ready to go. And I talked to my husband, so we decided to do it. What?
So she tried to get out So she had it under
Oh.
contract.
Mhm.
So yes. So. her
12
client-
hours.
Yeah,
Less than 12
hours.
hours.
So
that-
her
oh, no.
client, so.
Hey, I'm sorry, Kim, we can't hear you.
I know all about it. So
Who can hear? Oh,
Yeah.
Kim,
No, you want me to say it?
you can hear.
Tell that, but you want to say it for her.
no,
that-
she can say it. She's doing fine. Go ahead.
Tell him the part that you own it now. She left that part out.
So I bought it.
That's it.
I asked the client, I asked the agent, can we do a mutual release? He
Mhm.
said, too bad.
Right.
No. And what he says, and I panic and I call Zach. I'm like, oh, look what I did. And he's like, oh, okay. What I saved my
was
butt is that my husband and I are debt free. Everything, a house, cars, everything is paid for. And I have been in this business for 2.5 years. And I had enough money in my bank to pay for cash. So, right there, guys, debt free. I didn't have to go to the bank and borrow money. I sold it. I bought it Friday and it went on the contract yesterday. I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm not losing money.
Mhm.
I kept
Yeah.
2 clients. Yeah.
Yeah. You learned a lot from it,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is really the most important part.
Mhm.
Like you learned, oh, I need to maybe check into if Airbnbs are even available on this block or whatever because of the restrictions.
Mhm.
So yeah, I like that you didn't really beat yourself up over it. You just sort of did what you need to do, and you're gonna be a month from now. It's gonna be like, it was a learning curve.
I'm gonna have the money in my bank and
I'm curious.
ready for a new one.
So I'm curious for you, like, as an investment, is something interesting that you said right away is like, it's cute. So was it a math problem where you just did the math and you're like, that's an investment? Or was it like emotional and you're like, it's cute, I like it, I'd love to own it?
It was, I think because my husband is really math, numbers will tell you everything. But I had kind of asked advice several people,
Mhm.
and some people say, yeah, it's a great investment. You
Mhm.
could rent, for this. And then really, and I kind of listened, and I should have
Mhm.
say, okay, what is he saying that? And I should have run my numbers
Yeah,
better.
do your
Mhm.
own, like, listen to what they say, but
Right,
verify what
Right.
they say yourself.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm. So that was
It's awesome.
yeah.
Good for you. I mean, you're not making a ton of money, but you're not losing any money and you learned a lot. So good for you. Nice. What else? Who else has done something in the last month that's moving you forward? Or
So, I watched the last, I guess maybe the last one of these on Zoom. And, I started talking with my husband and I was like, look, we want to kind of get out of this 9 to 5. I'd been doing real estate in the mornings and working a second job at night. And he said, why are you doing all of that? We have this other house that I bought before we got married. He said, why don't you just quit doing that first job? We can afford, we did the budget. We went through all our finances. We're pretty close to debt free other than the mortgage. So he said, do that. Let's get that rental going. So we now have a plan to start working on that and building towards that future of hopefully one of these days him quitting his job and us working on flipping properties. So we have that like 5-year plan that we set out as well. Yeah. Exactly. Just flip it over.
just put it up for rent and watch everybody want to rent it from you for too much money. It's amazing.
Yeah, so we filled out the financial statement with my team. And I will be completely honest, my team definitely was hesitant about doing it together because they
You guys
didn't.
did it as a team?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
really?
I said, nobody has to share where, where they're at if they don't feel comfortable doing that. But I'm an open book. So I'll tell you exactly where I'm at and where I want to be. And so I went through and shared my financial statement, and it's not where I want to be.
Mhm.
But that really got us on track, I feel like. And I said, not only that, like, we're asking people to get pre-approved and share their finances with me. And if we can't even do this together as a team, what is that saying to your clients?
Mhm.
So, and I also feel like as a rainmaker, I don't love that title, but
Mhm.
as a rainmaker, I feel like it's my job to make sure that my team is going in the trajectory that they need to be.
Right.
And usually when agents come on, what's the number that you hear? Like, what do you want to make this year? Oh, 100,000.
100,000
And they
is
don't
always the
even
first
know
one,
like
yeah.
how to get there. They don't even know what that means. They don't know how much work that will take. And really, is 100,000, is that enough for what you
It
need?
might be enough. It may not. It may be more than you really need or want, right? It's
Exactly.
just an arbitrary number. yeah.
Exactly. And it was just like a number. And so I'm like, well, what are you going to do with that 100? If it's pays your bills, fantastic. What are you going to do with all the extra? Are you just going to like put it in the bank and just spend it as you need, or are we going to reinvest? And so being able to have that conversation with my team was really eye opening. And I know they did not want to do it in the beginning, but it made them feel a lot better afterwards. So
Yeah.
appreciate you guys sharing that info.
Yeah, I'm shocked that you did that. It's amazing. As a
It-
team too. I mean, that's
yeah,
pretty.
I
That's
told them,
pretty
and
awesome.
they did end up sharing. Everybody did end up sharing once
Yeah,
they
that's cool.
kind of got used to like seeing us, saying where our failures were, and we
Yeah.
shared that. Then they were ready to as well.
Nice work. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else want to share their? How many people already invest? I like know. You do. Cool. Good. Share.
So Tim and I are preparing for his retirement and him joining the team, and Keller Williams, we got our HELOC in place. So we are ready to go whenever an opportunity arises.
Good work. Congratulations. Nice. Well, that's fun.
And I'm going with that stinky house, the one I talked about
Yep.
that I had the opportunity on. It's still, I haven't closed on it yet, but we started the work on it because we have the option to purchase.
Mhm.
So I have a massive 30-yard dumpster out in front of the house, and it's almost completely full of mouse feces.
Yeah. Yep.
So, there's that.
Know that feeling. Know that feeling. What's next?
Mindset. We were talking about the bubble.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
I think in here in a little bit, we're going to kind of go through just a few things, and then I don't know. I don't like planned presentations. I just like to sit and talk, and I ask you questions. You guys can ask questions. We can just kind of brainstorm, because I feel like I want you to ask some questions, because I feel like you know. So I just want to get into that here in a little bit too. So just hang tight if you can.
One thing Zach and I were talking about yesterday, there's a podcast that we like to listen to. Highly recommended if you're not tuned into Bigger Pockets. Just listen to them when you're driving in your car. You learn so much about so many different things. They have a lot of experts on there. They recommend different books, but it really gets your brain expanding. So when we're talking about mindset, maybe 6 months or a year ago, Zach sat down with me and said, hey, start listening to Bigger Pockets. And that tunes you into something else. And then when you're listening to that and you hear other people talking about investment opportunities, then when something comes up in front of you, you recognize it as an opportunity because you heard somebody else talk about it already. So one of the Bigger Pockets recently was on, safe investing, and people asking like, are we in a real estate bubble? And is now a good time to invest? Well, there's always a good time to invest. Like, investing is, as long as you're doing it properly, there's not a bad time to be investing, as long as you know what you're doing. And the neat thing about real estate is that he mentioned it was kind of like mountain climbing. He's talking about mountain climbing. So he's like, stock market is like mountain climbing with no support system. So you can get up to the top of the peak and you can fall all the way to the bottom in a matter of minutes. And real estate is like climbing with a belay system. So even if you're climbing up that mountain and there's a bit of a fall, or there's a bit of a bubble, or there's a little bit of a market crash, you have that belay system to catch you. Even if you lose equity, guess what? It's a cash flowing property. maybe you lose a little bit of your cash flow, but you still have a performing asset that eventually is going to cycle back around and be worth more in the future. So you just kind of set up support systems for yourself in place. But because money is so cheap right now, even though prices are up, when you look at your monthly payment, if you can afford the down payment and it's going to rent out and be a cash flowing property, why wouldn't you want to invest and borrow the bank's money at 3% or 3.5%? I mean, this isn't going to happen again for us. So if we have money available to put down on properties that are cash flowing, it's a good investment. What are your thoughts, Zach?
Hey, Mark. How are you, buddy? Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything that you said.
Okay.
I couldn't have said it better.
I was plagiarizing.
Really.
I was plagiarizing. We have a question. Okay. Nicole Rice says, what do you recommend for agent investors that are looking for normal client leads and also personal investment needs? How do we keep those ethical lines clear? Your turn.
So what's the question?
If we're an agent,
Yeah.
so we're fishing for leads and then maybe we identify, oh, this could be a good investment for myself personally. So how do we keep those lines clear in terms of, doing the right thing as an agent?
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, I keep them clear by thinking about myself first. And Gary Keller agrees, okay? Like, you should be looking for yourself first. So if it's, I mean, I'm always looking, but it's always going to be, I'm getting it first. So
Mhm.
that's how I keep it clear. And then at that point, I buy it, I keep it, or I buy it, sell it to a client, and then they flip it. And, there's lots of different ways to do it. But for me, the priority is like taking care of myself and my family,
Mhm.
and I don't think there's any problem. Like there's no problem with that ethically.
No.
I mean,
Here's where the problem could come in. So let's say you've got an elderly client that calls in and says, I'd like somebody to tell me what my house is worth.
oh, like, yeah,
So we are going to be 100% honest with them about what their house is worth. If we get somebody calling in and saying, I'd like to sell my house for $84,000, you say, you know what? I may be interested in buying it for that price. I mean, if they call and tell you the price they want to sell for, if it's an opportunity and you want to buy it, then you make them an offer. But if somebody's coming to you as an agent saying, will you give me a market evaluation on my property? We are never going to lie to a client to get a deal for ourselves. That's the wrong thing to do. That's not ethical. It's not win-win or no deal. But there are people with headache properties that want out from under them. And you just say to them, look, I'm willing to take it off your hands. What's your bottom dollar? If I could get this sold, if I could get this closed for you in 2 weeks, what would that look like for you? What would make you happy? And sometimes that number works for everybody and everyone's happy, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I don't sell real estate that much anymore. So I don't really deal with that sort of gray area, because anybody that calls me, they're calling me because they want me to solve the problem that they have. And so I don't really get the retail clients that call and say, I have my past clients, but they're not calling me because they want me to buy it. They want me to sell it. And so that's a totally different conversation. So just to be clear, Amy's totally right on that.
Does anyone else in the room have something they'd like to add to that to answer her question?
Uh-oh.
He needs to get out of his house, and I made him a cash offer, but then I also told him how much I'd list it for,
Mm-hmm.
just plain and simple. And he went with a cash offer,
Mhm.
just texted me. So
Congratulations.
I got it. But, yeah, I'm excited, but it was a little weird, for sure.
Yeah.
But I told him that.
Yeah.
I'll help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just laying out like, here's option one and here's the net amount. Like, here's my option. They'll make whatever choices is best for them. We have any other questions on there?
That's the only question right now. Nicole, did that answer your question? If you have more to add, just type it in the box. We'll keep an eye on the chat.
I need to stand up.
Yeah. tell the client the honest truth about what it would list for. You can also make an offer personally regardless. Exactly. And you can do the math. You can say, look, we'll list it for this minus the real estate commissions and the title company charges. This would be your net. I'll buy it from you for that same net amount and take care of the title company charges myself. And a lot of times they're just happy to be clean, clear, done with it, especially with COVID and not wanting people through their house and whatever. You didn't get a huge bargain, but you didn't have to fight for a property in a multiple offer situation, and you got something a little bit under market value as long as it will rent.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Can we switch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just get into like talking about questions and comments and experiences if you guys don't care. Does anybody, I know everybody's here for a different reason, but I'd like to know more about like maybe what you are here for, where you're at in your investing. What's your next step? Do you have any questions about that? Anything you're going through right now? Lexi? Lexi, I met Lexi last year. She's not an agent. You're not licensed though, right?
No.
Yeah. We met last year. I don't actually know how, but well, I know that, but I don't know how you actually, why you called me. Or here.
A realtor. This realtor that I was working with to try to figure out what this house that I was going to wholesale was worth. And he's like, I know someone that will buy this from you probably today. And so I said, okay. And he called you and we were done with it. So, okay. So where I'm at is I've been doing this for just over a year. That was like actually my first wholesale deal. Yeah. And so it was a really good one. But since then, I've just been wholesaling. I have a rental, but I've had that forever. Oh, okay. So, we found a property that was really dilapidated, and we found the owner and just tried to convince him basically to sell us the property. It was a really ugly house. It was the house that he had grown up in, and his parents died, and it just was sitting there. But it was in Brentwood, and it was a good location. So anyway, we put the property under contract, and then rather than flipping it ourselves, because I have no experience flipping and it was a mess. Zach cleaned it up. So we just decided we were going to wholesale it. So we basically assigned the contract to Zach. So we had it under contract for, I think it was 20,000, and we just wholesaled it to you for 40. And I think you sold it for like 160 or something. It was it was a lot of work. Like I thought I was going to have to demo it. And I actually had several contractors bid on what it would cost to rehab it. And it was over $100,000. And I didn't have $100,000, but you did. So you did it. Yeah. Yeah.
No extra work.
I had no money into it whatsoever, obviously. So I just made $20,000 just for calling Zach.
And some people work for a whole 6 months on a flip and barely make $20,000.
Right.
So
there was just so much risk with that. There was like mold and uneven floors. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. So, okay. So I've been doing that. I've been wholesaling for a year, and that's great. But I am stuck because I don't want to borrow conventional money to start buying and holding. And so I have paid, I don't know, $27,000 to $30,000 on coaching, like to take real estate classes so that everyone's like, you don't have to use your own money. You can do this using other people's money. Well, I don't know who these other people are, but I can't find them. And, I feel like I'm just like where the sidewalk ends. Like either and I don't have a 9 to 5. Like I have a consulting business that does great, but I want to do this. So I already stay home with my kids and I homeschool and whatever. And I don't have debt. Well, I have a little bit of debt now from real estate because I did a deal last year maybe I'm talking too long. Just tell
No,
me,
no,
just
no.
like get the cane. But I really screwed something up. Like I took a class on how to do assisted living properties. And I found a bed and breakfast that was perfect. And I knew what I was doing, quote unquote, because I had my certification in opening up assisted living properties. But it was right before COVID. And I put this property under contract that was a bed and breakfast. And it was supposed to close a week before everything shut down, the mandatory shutdown. So the bank pulled our financing, which put me in default of the contract. And the I'm sorry, can I say that? The guy that had the property, he was so mad. He had like no empathy for the worldwide pandemic. And he was like, I'm not giving you your earnest money back. I'm not going to sign a mutual release, which was $15,000. And I'm going to sue you. So I had to hire an attorney. So that cost me an extra $8,000. So I'm actually in debt now because of the friggin' thing that I did. But the really horrible, like gut wrenching thing is it was a minimum of $12,000 a month of net income and then up to $24,000 a month of net income. And that was like real. I mean, that was a done deal. So it wasn't a done deal. And so now I have a little bit of debt because of that. So I need to like break on through to the other side right now and move on to the next level. I don't know. This is just a mess. My question is, I want to be able to buy and hold more properties, and I don't want to like leverage. I have 3 houses. I don't want to leverage those 3 houses to do it. What kind of good deals? Oh, you mean like with wholesaling? Yeah. And actually right now I also have quite a few wholesalers that are now calling me to buy their properties. And I'm like, yes, I want them. But technically I really don't have the access to be able to do that.
Right. So are you scared of borrowing money? Is that
I'm
what you're
not scared
getting
of
at,
borrowing
or-
money, but from my understanding with traditional lending, you can only really have, I think, like 10 properties
Yeah.
against your own assets.
No, it's so you can only have 10, it's 10 or 11. So there's 2 conversations. There's, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to put 20% down or 25, and I'm going to originate the loan at Oakstar, and then they're going to sell it to Wells Fargo. I'm going to get a 30-year fixed rate, and it's going to be super low. That's one way of doing it, which is the 10 or 11 limit, because it's being guaranteed. You're getting a long-term, very low fixed rate. So that's that, right? Over here is like your local, I'm going to go to Legacy Bank. We're going to sit down. We're going to figure out a way to get this property bought, even though it needs a bunch of work. So that's the direction that you probably would want to go, right? This way. So how you do that is if you have an undervalued piece of property, we could just take Brentwood, that property for an example, right? So if you wouldn't have sold it to me, you go to the bank and you say, I'm going to close on this in a month. I'm buying it for 20 grand. And they're going to go, okay, how much work's it going to need? You're going to say 100 grand. They're going to say, okay. In that case, they would make you a credit line and say, here's your 100 grand for repairs, and we'll buy the property for you. And that deal, you could have easily done that with no money, bless you, no money down. Like just because you're buying it undervalued.
Okay. I didn't know that because I went to Oakstar and they told me they wouldn't lend me any money.
Well, it's probably just because of the relationships and like, do you bank with them personally?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, that's a factor. It's like, is it your first deal with them? That's a factor. But if you kind of like, you kind of leverage relationships, like you could say, Zach, who should I talk to? Talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like a relationship thing, which shouldn't matter, but it does really matter. It really does. So you get your next deal. If it's a good deal, if it's not a good deal, if you're just going to go out and buy a house for 190,000, it's worth 190,000,
No.
and you're going to rent it for 1,200 a month, those numbers aren't going to work. Banker's not going to get excited. They're going to want you to put 20% down or whatever. But if you're finding something that's a good deal, needs work to where you can force some equity by renovating it, like we did on the Brentwood house, then that's a totally different ballgame. Most of what I buy now, because I do buy distressed in most cases, I don't even, so I use my money a lot of times to buy it and do the work, but the end result is I get all my money back and then I just have a note with the bank for the full amount, you know? So, but it all starts with getting a good deal. And you, I think, do that.
Yeah.
So if you have those, you could just call me and say, hey, you know, here's what I have. What do you think? And you could pretty easily probably do it.
Okay.
I think you just don't know what you don't know yet because you haven't done it.
100%.
Yeah. So because you haven't done it. And I've done it a lot. So I could probably help you pretty easily just kind of break through that. So
Oh,
I think
made a huge mistake, obviously.
I know, and I talked to her about that during the pandemic. I remember talking to you for probably an hour
Yeah.
about it. What
Yeah.
only felt like an hour. I think it was
It's a
an hour.
good deal, though.
But it was interesting. The whole deal was interesting, right?
Felt like an hour. No,
We-
it was an amazing deal.
Like I was interested myself in it, was why it was an
Oh,
hour, because I was
and
like
then-
digging. But
COVID. It was COVID.
yeah, so that sucks. But you'll get through it. It'll be behind you. So the next step for you would just be find a deal that you think is worth investing in, and then call me. We evaluate it. You talk to the bank. They'll probably give you renovation money. Do the deal. So it's easy.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Solving my problem.
yep. I wish I could give you like, but it's just easier to like find the deal, then call me. You know?
Zach's eyes. He's like, we need to talk.
Yeah, we do. No, I'm just kidding.
What?
Do you have any questions or anything you want to talk about? Bring it. Let's go quick. Just ask. Oh, like one-on-one? Okay.
Okay, my question is has anybody hit a roadblock yet? So they started their journey, they've done something, and now they're at a standstill, like what we were just talking about.
See it back there. I'm going.
Who's hitting a roadblock?
Hang on. It's going to take me 10 minutes to get
Too
to the very
late.
back of the room, but give me a second.
Hi, Elise Riley, longtime listener, first time caller. Hey guys. So Felicia and I are, we bought an investment property that's just down the road from us. It was like literally I could walk out my front door, turn to the left, and it's 3 houses down across the street. And so there was a great opportunity. We bought it. We've got a long-term tenant in it right now. We did some work to it, but pretty minimal. And then someone in our neighborhood approached us and they were like, hey, we heard you're wanting to buy a bigger house. So do you want to buy our house? And I was like, oh, hell no, I don't have that kind of money. Like, and then we went into it. I was like, shit, I got to find some money. So then we bought that house. So then we had 2 houses that the house that we were currently in, all 3 of them are in a 1-block radius in Roundtree. So I went from having 1 house in Roundtree to 3, and I'm like, oh shit. So it took a lot of money up front. And so we have a baby on the way. And of course, I've found 2 more houses. One is on the same block, and I'm like, I'm just gonna own this block. Just gonna own it. Yeah, name the whole block Riley right here. This is the Riley spot, right? So, but I've got a wife that's like, she will not take. I mean, if I could I'll take all the risks. But now I've got a kid, I've got another one on the way, and a wife that's like, all right, can you pump the brakes? Because I maybe not buy another house just yet. And my thought is, that's a lot of diapers. So if I buy the house now, that can supplement that, so I'm trying to figure out a way to, can someone talk to Felicia? Hey, Zach, Amy, anyone got a good approach, because I really want to buy at least one of them because it's right next door to my long-term tenant. It's sitting vacant. No one's lived there. The city always comes in and puts the lawn sign in that says mow your grass. So I was going to mow it, but I'm like, I don't own it yet. But when I do, I'm like, I'll take care of that, city of Springfield. Don't you worry. So anyway, that's kind of my roadblock here is, where do I go from here? Because like we have a line of credit with Matt O'Hare over at O'Bannon Bank. We definitely have more available funds, but if we get into this house, it's going to be a total gut job. It's a small 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom little bungalow. So it's not a huge square footage endeavor, but it's still been vacant for like 5 years. So it's going to need a lot of stuff. Also, the guy that owns it is a dick. So there's that. He's old, he's crotchety, and he's holding on to it for some reason. So So also, can someone talk to him too? That'd be great. So anyway, crowdfunding. I just need someone to go be nice because I don't know.
Take the baby with you. People cannot be mean to babies. You've got a good banker. So like for me, I would probably go sit down with the banker and line out all of my assets, all of my equity position and everything and say, you tell me, how do I get this? Like, what do I need to do? I mean, that's what commercial bankers especially are pretty creative, especially at the small local bank level. So don't go to the big banks, go to like Legacy, State. Yes.
So is it the money or is it Felicia?
Yes.
Felicia?
No, it's not. So it's not necessarily the money. So the house that we were living in Roundtree, we turned it into an Airbnb. It's got amazing cash flow. We left all of our furniture there, which was awesome. By the way, it's not moving that.
Easy move.
Super easy to move because we didn't have big furniture to move. We just left all of those things there. So that's the cash flow on our Airbnb is fantastic. And our equity in that is also, we have probably 70,000 in equity on that. So would that be the better option? Should we do a HELOC? Should we go to Matt?
Can I ask like detailed questions?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, if you don't want to share it.
Hey, you and I.
So you
let's
have
talk.
your home.
Uh-huh.
So that's all taken care of. You live there.
Mhm.
And then you have this other home. It's an Airbnb with 70 grand in equity. And then what do you have?
Another 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom bungalow.
Rented?
That's rented.
Is it
long-term
cash
rental.
flowing?
It is cash flowing. We get
Okay.
about $350 for the
Okay.
door.
And so then there's a 4th and 5th one close that you want to buy?
Yes.
Okay.
Felicia only knows about the 4th.
Okay. So what's her concern? Because I mean, obviously
Risk.
that's what
Risk.
just overall, like there's nothing specifically that's like,
Yeah, we've
this
got
isn't working
so
or
if
that. It's just, I'm nervous.
So we did IVF and it cost us 35 grand to even have a child.
Mhm.
So the unexpected, what if something else pops up? What if we have, some major health problem or what if something pops up? And so there's just this constant nagging fear that, whenever I bring up like, hey, let's drop this money to go do this, it's like, well,
Yeah.
I see that comment, Rachel. Thank you.
Do you?
So before I hired Lindsay Fearing, I did not necessarily do my compliance very quickly. So there was one point in time Keller Williams had like, I don't know, 30 grand or something. It's fine.
And Felicia could never know about it.
Thank you guys very much. All right. Anyway, okay. So
So do you have a credit line already?
yeah, over at O'Bannon Bank.
Yeah. And so how much is the credit line?
It was for 325 and we've used 119.
So what's on that?
That's the 2-1 bungalow. That's the long-term tenant.
Okay. And it's on your credit line still?
Uh-huh.
Why?
Because
why
we
that?
haven't sold it. Because we put a long-term tenant in there.
Right. But are you keeping it?
Yeah.
So you need to move it off your line, right?
Oh. Okay.
Free up space.
Well, yeah, you just go to O'Bannon that's who your
Yeah,
lines
Matt.
and just have him move it off into a 5, 7, 10-year arm.
Uh-huh.
And then it's off there, right? And then
Mhm.
it's over there taking care of itself.
Okay.
And then you have your full, but that's not the problem still, because you still had enough money on your credit line to buy this house, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
not really the issue either, even though you do need to move it off your credit line.
Good to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't know that was an option. Sorry.
Well, yeah, you move it off there and then it's clear again. And then it has its own mortgage and
Mhm.
yeah, it's doing its thing. But so I guess if I were you, I would probably just keep doing it, and just kind of come on, Felicia, we're doing it. We're gonna be wealthy. You're not standing in my way. But maybe be
Very
cautious.
opinionated Italian woman. This is fine.
I do sense that like, are you emotionally buying or are you, because so far it sounds like your Airbnb is doing well, it's making money. Your long-term is doing well also. So that's good. But you're not like all of a sudden buying emotionally because they're right by you and you want to own them all and like,
Right.
or
Well,
do
I
they
think
still
that-
make total sense and
Yeah, like if I can get the house, the small house especially that I really want that's next door to my long term, then I would probably be willing to overpay that a little bit just to also have the control of who is right there because the house is really bad.
Mhm.
So I would probably overpay a little bit for it, but not astronomical.
Well,
But
overpaying is like, it's kind of like, it doesn't mean a lot because like you could be overpaying based on what I think,
Mhm.
but I might want to buy it for 70 and it's worth 150. So, and you're paying 100 and I think you're overpaying, but really you're not. So it's like kind of, does it make sense
little
though
more
to flip
subjective,
it
yeah.
or does it make sense to rent it and cash flow? Like, does it check all those boxes to where like worst case, I renovate it, I rent it, I'm going to make $300 a month, $400 a month cash flow, or I could sell it and make another 20 or 30 grand or 40 or 50. Like,
Right.
is it hitting all those boxes or is it like hitting one out of 3 or 4,
It's hitting all of them. So
Yeah.
I mean, it really makes sense.
Yeah.
So
So, I mean, I think you just explain it, but you just kind of have to like, I did that with my wife in the beginning. It's like, I'm going to do it. It's working. I mean, don't you have proof that like it's working? I mean, do you have money building up in your accounts and like seeing that?
Right. We do.
Yeah.
And so we're
Yeah.
because Airbnb,
Right.
like 2 days after.
Yep.
And so then we get our.
Yep.
So.
Mhm.
How much?
Mhm.
And then we can do the math.
Right.
We don't have if we have.
Why do you need to pull a HELOC? You keep saying that.
I don't. I think I'm.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just wondering.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Oh.
Oh,
Well, yeah, HELOC is, well, I mean.
Sorry, Rachel. I thought it was done. Hi. Hey. It's good to see you. You look great.
Hi, where's Ned? I've been waiting for Ned all day.
Oh shit. Sorry, I forgot.
So you're set up basically, right? To do what you need to do. It's just a matter of like dragging Felicia along with you.
I can do that.
Yeah, you can.
Sure.
Yeah,
Right.
you can do it. Yeah.
Doesn't she have to
Well, yeah,
sign
it's like,
something?
especially with this though, this is pretty important. It's like, it's hard to get comfortable with it, but at the end of the day, like 10 years from now, you look back and it's like, holy crap. Like,
Right.
I'm glad that we did what we were doing, even though it was really uncomfortable, because that's all it is. It's just uncomfortable for her,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess you got to be a little sympathetic, but also like keep moving forward.
I was just going to chime in on it because it sounds like kind of universally in the room, it sounds like everybody is just scared. And I'm going to be honest with you. Before I even came into real estate, I just recently joined Mark Stewart's team as an executive assistant, but I was a 20-year-old and I decided because I served my country, I came back and I had a little bit of money and I'm like, okay, what can I do with this money? Because I didn't have any kids or anything at the time. And I can tell you, until you guys get comfortable with the fact that you may lose what you could potentially gain, you're not going to break those boundaries and those fear chains. And here's why I say that is because the whole reason why I'm actually here is because I suffered a lot more than a $28,000 loss. We're talking like a $500,000 loss. Because
are you trying to help right now?
Yeah, no, here, okay, yes, absolutely, but there's more to it. There's more to it, of course. But just like with any situation, until you guys are comfortable with that, because I was 20 years old, my credit score was nothing. I was making minimum wage as a bank teller, and whenever I came back from serving my country, and I'm like, okay, so how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Because I grew up poor. Nobody was there to hold my hand. Nobody was there to help me. I had no one to get advice from. And so a lot of it, you just have to believe in yourself. And a lot of it sounds like, especially like with your situation, you don't know because you don't know what the cost is going to be to fix these things, right? And so in order to move forward, sometimes, I heard a lot of people are fortunate enough to have the money to be able to buy it. You guys are at that point in your career, but some of us, like myself included, we're not as fortunate. And so sometimes we do have to bite the bullet and accept those loans, accept the extra fees and stuff like that to initially get the ground running. And that's exactly what I did. And while it's kind of a bittersweet for me, I purchased a commercial property at 20 years old back 7 years ago. But now in this market, I have the capability of getting $300,000 now a profit, but unfortunately that's going because I tied another business to it, so on and so forth. And so I'll be lucky to, make it out, 20 to 50,000 ahead. But the point being is where I was 3 months ago, I was all doom and gloom. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm losing everything. I'm losing out on $500,000, but continuing to research opportunities. And I think the biggest part is going back to what he said was mindset, because all of this financial stuff, you can find contractors all day long, licensed professional contractors to lease out the work for you. You don't have to know jack anything about construction. You don't have to know anything about really financial investment, but it's a good idea to kind of know, as real estate agents, of course, knowing your market, knowing what houses would be potentially good to invest in, how much is it going to cost? Because if you blindly, like what I did, unfortunately, blindly going into a property and not really knowing what the potential value could be at the end, not knowing your costs and stuff like that, that's where it got me, was not doing the due diligence on my part and researching, because I just thought, that I knew it all with it. So some of my advice that I could share to you is that until you guys are comfortable with being poor, you're never going to get rich, in my opinion, because you'll never take that leap. You'll never take that leap of investment if you're not willing to do so. And you could potentially lose it all, or on the flip side, you could potentially get everything. So that's just kind of my feedback and my experience. And like I said, and I'm new to real estate. This is me coming into it. I owned daycare centers before I started here, and I knew nothing about commercial property or anything, and I cannot tell you how many lenders I went to and got turned down, and I still kept feeling strong about my business plan, and I kept moving until finally a lender was willing to work with me and believed in my business plan as much as I did. So you're going to experience those high moments where like, woohoo, I've got all this money. And then like, what do I do with it? And then you're going to invest, and you may potentially lose, you may not. But the more that you educate yourself, in my opinion, about the property that it is you're going into, how much it's going to cost to flip it or potentially sell it, is where you guys will actually make out. And so that's just kind of my feedback.
It's a really good way of saying get off your ass and stop being scared. Thank you. Very good.
Well,
Officially done.
use resources around you. Like, I mean, the thing that you just said was that you didn't really have anybody around you that you could bounce ideas off of, get their advice, talk to them about how to structure your financing, whatever it is, right? Well, in this room right now, right here, we do have those resources, and so you utilize those by being here, asking questions, calling me. It's all stuff that either we've all dealt with. Every question in here, one of us has already dealt with it and solved the problem. So your problem with, well, where are the people with the money I can use their money, right? Well, it's an easy problem to solve, really. It's just find the deal, a good deal, and then we move forward. So thank you for sharing that. Just utilize the people around you and that have already done it, and it'll help you make less mistakes. That's for sure. So
Honestly, how much of it really is the narrative in your own head telling you, oh, I can't do that. So you find the good deal, you have a good deal in your hands, and you go, oh, who else would like this deal because I'm not worthy of it or I'm not capable of it. But the reality is you are, right? So ask around, ask the question, and then it's believe in yourself to know that, okay, if I put together the right team, I don't have to do this on my own. If I put together the right team, I can make that happen. And I deserve to get to see the end result of it. I don't have to just wholesale a deal, even though sometimes it makes the most sense to wholesale and you don't have to get your hands dirty, which is amazing. Like 20 grand without having to shovel poop is great.
yeah, I didn't look at Broadmoor, did I? Oh, I bought it? Oh, no, Broadmoor is Brentwood. No. Oh. Okay. I bought Broadmoor. That's so crazy. Okay.
Don't we all want to be like Zach? So many properties, we don't even know what we.
I don't even remember that.
Wait, was I,
mean,
even in
remember
that
raccoon
house?
or whatever, but I don't remember the house. But anyway, what other questions? Anything you want to share? Or awesome.
So I'm a new agent, and before getting my real estate license, I had no experience or knowledge about real estate whatsoever. But my vision is to be in property investment. And my husband knows that, but we've been lucky enough to not have any debt. And I think his fear is getting into debt. For him, cash is king. And I think for everyone, cash is king. So the biggest battle, I mean, we have a kid on the way this year. So for him, it's just like, let's just wait, kind of like Felicia, like, let's just wait because, kids are expensive. But to me, I'm like, I want to purchase property, flip it, and rent it out. To him, it's like, I don't want to do the work of flipping it, which is understandable. We bought a house when we moved here to Springfield, which is the house that we're living in now. And we've completely remodeled it because it really wasn't what we were looking for, but it was the right price. And it's been a lot of work. I mean, yeah, so it's been a lot of work. And he's just like, I just don't want to do that. And yeah. And I was like, okay, then you don't have to. Then I'll find the people to do it, but I don't know who to find or what to do. So I guess my question is, like, for someone that's brand new, that doesn't really know where to even start, what would your advice be?
I agree that debt is bad, but it's like what I wrote up here. Assets are different from liabilities. Real estate, the real estate I invest in, it actually pays me every month. So when you think about like, well, I've got a, baby on the way, we got this, we got that. You have to, like, he's got to switch his mindset and go, the real estate actually helps you pay for those things,
Yeah.
Because that's really what it does if you invest right.
And that's what I've said. I'm like, by us investing in a property, if we have tenants paying for our mortgage, then we're
Right.
not really spending anything. We're
Yeah.
going to be getting money back.
Right.
But I think it's the fear of
Sure.
like going into a bank and like asking for a loan,
Sure.
because we haven't really had to do that. And then having that on your credit or whatever is scary.
Yeah.
And there's the question of like, how do I know if a property is worth investing in? Like, how do I know this is a property I want to buy when you've never really invested in property? Like, how
Right.
do you know this is a good one to
Yeah.
buy?
It's all about math, because it's not an emotional thing.
Yeah.
It's not how cute it is or whatever. It's the math, and it's
Mhm.
what's no. I just mean that it's about what is it gonna do financially for you?
Yeah.
Like, is it gonna drag you down, or
Mhm.
is it gonna actually help you move forward? And,
Yeah.
But go ahead. I know you.
Yeah,
got a
so
point.
there's good debt and there's bad debt,
Mhm.
right? So if you had $100,000 handed to you and we follow your hubby's plan of paying a house cash for $100,000, in 15 or 20 years, you have one house worth 100 and whatever, that because it's appreciated in value, right? Or if we took that $100,000 and we went with traditional bank loan, they want 20% down. We're just talking basic traditional, and you go 20 grand down on 5 different properties. They're all cash flowing for you. And in 15 or 20 years, you can have them paid off. The tenants have paid them off.
Yeah.
And now what does your asset base look like? To do the math for him, and you show him on paper, what do you want to have in 15 or 20 years?
I mean, he's good with numbers. He's better at numbers than I am.
Yeah.
I think to him, it's just the idea of having the debt because, yeah, I mean, currently the house we live in, we rent out a room. We don't
So
have,
you're already doing it.
we're already doing it. But because we don't have a mortgage, it's just like, oh, it's just extra money. I'm like, it's the same thing. It's just, it's exactly the same thing. Like, that's exactly what I want to do. And then eventually the house is going to pay off itself. And then we'll be able to get all that money without having to pay a bank and then invest in more.
Yeah. The hardest one's it's just the first one's gonna be really hard.
Mhm.
So you're just gonna have to like do it.
Because it's like, yeah.
Great advice. You're just gonna have to do it. It is hard. It's the scariest part of this whole process is the first one, because I remember mine really, really, really well. And I almost sold it right after I bought it because I kind of freaked out a little bit, which I still have it. So I totally can understand the feeling. So if you have adequate money
hmm
in your account, like
Yeah.
just rainy day funds operating, right?
Yeah.
You're good there. You just have to like, if you find a deal that works,
Yeah.
right? You just have to like walk into the feeling of like, this is really scary. You just
Yeah.
literally gonna have to like both force yourselves to do it.
Yeah.
As long as the math makes sense.
Yeah. And we've had conversations of like purchasing our dream home. And we have been at the house that we're at for like a year and a half, and we've been remodeling it. We're not even done yet. And he was like, "Oh, let's keep." At first he was like, "Let's sell this house and buy a bigger house." And I was like, "No, we're not selling this house. We're going to keep this house. And if we want to purchase a bigger house, then we can go ahead, but we're going to keep this one and rent it out." And what I've been telling him is like, "Why don't we keep this house and purchase a cheaper house?" And that way we can rent it out and make money off of it. But to him, it's like, "I don't want to purchase this." I'm like, "You don't have to live in the dang house." Like I think to him, you purchase a house, you have to live in it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm comfortable. I mean, he's comfortable in the house that we're in, but to him, it's like if we purchase a house, it has to be bigger so that we can live in it. And then
Does he read books or listen to podcasts?
he listens to podcasts. He
Does
doesn't
he?
like reading.
Yeah. I just wonder, like, you should have him, like, has he ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
No.
You should have him just buy the audiobook and listen to it.
Yeah.
I think it's just a mindset
Yeah.
thing. Like, he needs to hear a different perspective.
Yeah.
And it'll probably align him a little bit closer to where your
Yeah.
mind's at.
Mhm.
Because it is hard when you're on two different, like, you're going this direction,
Yeah.
he's going that way.
Yeah.
It's hard to.
And I think that we meet at one point, but it goes back to the fear of losing money.
Sure.
And I mean, he bought a venue in California. I'm like, "You did it yourself. You invested in a venue and you've been building equity off of it. So it's the exact same thing. It's just residential property instead of commercial property."
Right.
And he has one of his best friends is a real estate agent in Hawaii, and we were all on the phone, and his friend and I just started talking about real estate. And his friend was like, "Oh yeah, in Missouri, you guys, I mean, the dollar goes a long way.
Yeah.
You guys can purchase a lot of property and invest and make a lot of money." And he was like, "Yeah, that's what Maria wants to do." I'm like, "Well, then let me do it."
Yeah, start hanging out with like-minded people and
So,
letting
Zach,
him
can we
hear
go out
those
for
conversations. Yeah.
Millie, Elliot, can we go out for coffee?
Yes, start being around. So bring him with to the Springfield networking. There's a real estate investors group. Bring him along and go visit that
Mhm.
and network and
Yeah.
spend time talking to the friend in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So tap into your resources. They say that we will think like the 5 people that are closest to us, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So when we want to change our mindset, we want to change our thinking, we
Mhm.
do things like this. We come and be around people like Zach, like,
Yeah.
okay, help me change my thinking. I know I'm getting in my own way.
Yeah.
I know that I have thoughts and patterns that I grew up with. That I didn't deserve it. I didn't feel worthy to have it, right?
Yeah.
But then when I'm around other people that are thinking bigger and they say, "Did you know?" Then
Mhm.
something in your brain opens up, and then you can't unlearn that.
Yeah.
Once you know something bigger, we're
Yeah.
all working on expanding our brains, right?
Yeah.
Love that.
Thanks.
What other questions? Anything else? What time is it due?
It's 2:09.
Does anybody have any questions? Anything we can touch on real quick before we finish up? You do? Okay.
It's so hot in here. We weren't sure what the HELOC was. Can you tell us what that is?
A home equity line of credit. So if you have equity in your home, a bank will lend you on a line of credit up to usually 80% of the value of that home. And it's available to you. If you're not using it, you don't pay a penny on it. When you tap into it, so you borrow 10 or 20 grand against it, you're going to start paying interest only payments on that amount until you repay the principal. You need to be disciplined with it, or you can get yourself in debt. You know, don't buy fixed asset purchases with it. Don't go on a vacation with it. Use it strictly for investing where you know you have a time when you're going to be paying that all back. And
Yeah, it's usually a rate that changes. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
it's a bad idea to use it for something long-term.
yeah, but it might be like
So-
4 or 5%, you know, it's floating, and then you only make the payments when you're using a portion of it. So like I've got a little one in place that I can use if I want to buy like this little house up in North Springfield. They want me to put 25% down on it. I can tap into that, use that as my 25% down. The bank will lend me the rest of the money to complete the purchase and fix it up. And then when I turn around and refinance the entire thing for the current market value, I can pay myself back and then have a cash flowing rental property
With none of your money in
with
it.
none of my money in it. But I used my own money temporarily, but eventually I won't have any money in it.
So apologize my lack of, excuse my lack of knowledge on the details of this, but I met with a lender a little while back, and they talked about new restrictions on lenders allowing only, I think, 7% of their portfolio to be non-owner occupied and like second homes. How do you foresee that being like an issue with people starting out in investing homes and trying to, you know, take loans to purchase potential rentals and stuff like that?
I don't know. I've never even heard of it, so I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I didn't know like I said, I didn't know the details of
I wouldn't even worry
what it
about
was
it.
called, but he said some lenders were already like almost maxed out on that, and they were having to like sell and stuff like that. Sorry.
I don't even know what.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Are you talking about the lender or the bank?
Like the bank itself.
The bank, how much, how many loans they have for investment properties or
Right,
something
like
like
the
that?
percentage of their portfolio could only be so many percentage of
And that's what they're
second
holding
homes.
in-house. That's their
Yeah,
in-house
yeah.
loans.
I'm sure
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
been there. I mean, and maybe it's getting tighter now because more people are buying. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, he said it was like a new restriction that they were
Yeah.
kind of
You just go to
pinching
a
down
different
on.
bank.
Mhm.
I just didn't know if like people that are getting into this now, if that's something that would be a big deal for them, like
No.
long term.
No, that's the thing. It all changes. It changes all the time. So you can't
Yeah.
really, you don't really worry about it.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Yeah. If you worry about everything that's going to maybe happen or change, you just never do it. So,
Mhm.
but what bank is that?
That was with Flat Branch.
Oh, okay. Well, they don't, Flat Branch, they don't do in-house local like portfolio commercial lending, do they? They
Mm-mm.
just, you put
I think he
20%
meant,
down,
like,
they
who
sell it off to somebody.
who they did it through.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I was looking for investment properties, I mean, I would probably go through like a Legacy Bank or Oak Star Bank or O'Bannon, Bank of Bolivar, like those type of banks.
Yeah, I was gonna, Zach, you just said I was talking to Casey Cooper at USA Mortgage, and he
Yep.
said that like Fannie Mae and Freddie is only gonna do 7% of their portfolio as second homes. And then he said you're better off going to a local bank and doing an in-house loan versus trying to go through somebody who's taken it to the secondary market, because they are limiting what they'll do.
So I'm curious, is that just second homes? Because second homes is something entirely different than a rental property. So it's rentals as well.
Non-owner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which that makes sense.
Well,
that's
I'm-
all government-backed notes, and they
Mhm.
change their lending guidelines and credit scores and all that stuff all the time. So,
And if I can kind of continue on the lending portion, I don't know anything about taking loans for like, you know, rentals, stuff like that, and purchasing second homes. If you're going to go that route to buy investment properties, you said kind of the best option is go local, you know, maybe the in-house lenders and stuff. How does that work in relation to just like a normal home loan mortgage type? You know, you go in, get your pre-approval, stuff like
Yeah.
that. It sounds like in a situation, if you were looking for, like Lexi talks about, you know, buying undervalued houses, if you're trying to find those deals,
Mhm.
obviously in this market with a lot of investors and stuff, if you're kind of having to move quickly on those properties, what's the best route to be
Yeah.
prepared as soon as you find that?
Well, so the secondary market, which is like the Fannie and Freddie, those types of loans, which is what a lot of our clients do. Those are good if you plan to move in the house yourself. You're going to stay there for a long time. It doesn't need to be renovated because you're putting 20% down most of the time. So it's a lot more out of pocket. And so if you're buying a house that needs 50 grand in work, plus you have to put 20% down, it's a lot. So those types of loans are geared towards owner occupants that, I have 11 of them, but hindsight, it was like I was putting 20% down on every single one of them, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I just did it. It's great because you get a long-term fixed rate, but it's bad because I have a lot more cash wrapped up in those. Whereas if I would have gone to Legacy or Bank of Bolivar or O'Bannon, we could have sat down and I probably could have, they would have bought the house, gave me the money to renovate it, finish it, refinance it, and have none of my money in it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's so the local lending is geared towards more of a creative type deal where there's a renovation involved or just an undervalued asset, like what Lexi's looking at. Like that's what she would want to talk to the local banks versus a big bank,
Right.
with a long term.
And in starting out, like in that process, if you're wanting to, borrow money to purchase, rentals and stuff like that, investment properties, are they going to do this? Like, are you going to go through the same process of, say I don't have a portfolio of 10 rentals that I currently have, that they're going to look at my assets and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Is it kind of a similar process of what you would go through for like a mortgage? Are they just going to do your credit, your income, stuff like that? Or do they more assess the property itself and say,
it's more
well,
personal.
You could actually, even if, you don't have anything to your name, we can still take this back and make our money back on it. Is it just kind of a numbers thing with that?
It's basically the same, except, I mean, they're going to check all those, the credit and the income and the debt and all that. But it's more of like, okay, what do you have? Like, what's it worth? What are you going to do with it? Like, they're going to ask you those questions to kind of figure out, like, does this make a lot of sense or does it not?
Right.
Versus, the other direction, it's just, if you qualify, we'll give you the loan, put 20% down.
Right.
It's a little, well, I wouldn't say it's easier. You're just putting so much more money in the deal. And if you fit into the box of like what they want, then fine, here you go. It works. Locally, it's just different. There's more of a conversation. There's more flexibility, more options. So, if you're buying a property that's in great shape, the numbers work, and you have 20% down and you want a really low rate fixed for 30 years, you just do a secondary note. If it's a crappy property, you got to renovate it, the whole deal, it makes probably more sense to go to like a local bank, but qualifying is going to be basically the same.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then as you build that relationship with the bank and you prove to them that you know your numbers, over time, they may require you to put down less.
Yeah, they definitely will. It's all about relationships and them getting comfortable with you. It's like you're dating. Like you just met on your first deal, and then you go on another date when you bring them another property, and then after a while, you're like married.
And they call you and they're like, "Do you need any money?"
Yeah, they're going to do whatever you need them because they trust you and they know that you're committed and they're committed to your, what you're doing. So for sure. Sorry. No, I don't.
Yeah.
I would. It's not that I don't want to or anything. I'd love to, but
I just didn't know if the Springfield market was good for Section 8. I've read in other areas it is because it's a government.
Yeah.
That they're paying you, but I just didn't know about our market.
Amy, do you have anything?
I have done Section 8. I have all kinds of good Section 8 stories. Okay, I had a good. No, I had a 12 unit up in Camdenton that was Section 8 approved, and I just had a rule for myself that I would never rent out more than 4 units on Section 8. So I didn't want my entire complex to be Section 8 housing, right? And then I would try to be kind of picky with my Section 8 tenants because you get a wide range, a wide gamut of people. Your ideal Section 8 tenant is probably retired and, they're going to take good care of the property. But you also get people that don't care. Somebody else is making that rent payment for them. So you get your guaranteed rent every month, but when they move out, yeah, for what you have to know, what you have to keep the property maintained to a certain level for the government. And they don't punish the tenants for being crappy. You get penalized as the owner. So you really want to be careful with your Section 8 tenant base
Isn't
if
that
you're going to do
similar
it.
though to any tenant?
Yeah.
I mean, you're
Mhm.
pre-qualifying them.
Yeah.
They're signing the lease agreement. You're holding them to their standard. of
Here's
like,
my favorite one. So my favorite one was she was in her 20s and she had a good sob story, and I agreed to rent to her, and she had a baby and had friends over. They were smoking weed and doing whatever else in the property. But I had other tenants calling me complaining, they're disrupting the living for the rest of the tenants in the complex. And I can't get my sleep and I can't. So I gave her a verbal warning and I gave her another warning. And finally I called the Section 8 people and I said, I've got a problem with my Section 8 tenant. And they were like, well, you can evict her. If you evict her, she's going to lose her Section 8. So then I called and had another conversation with her. And I said, sweetie, we're going to have a talk. Here's the deal. If I have to turn you into Section 8, you're going to lose your funding and you're going to lose the ability to rent. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to move out on your own initiative, and you got a month to find yourself another place. She didn't move out. She also knew how to dodge the process servers. So she was in there 3 months longer than she should have been, scared away a couple tenants because she had men and boys coming and going at all hours. And when she left, she took all her dirty diapers from her baby and smeared them all over the walls, the kitchen, everything, and left trash everywhere, just mounds and mounds of trash. So that was my favorite Section 8 story.
Best.
They didn't reimburse me anything.
Oh.
It's a sliding scale. Yeah. So it's a sliding amount depending on their financial situation. In her case, they were paying her entire monthly rent. But I could find another tenant. I didn't want the rent. I just wanted somebody that was going to take good care of the unit and not be a problem and a nuisance to other neighbors. But that was only one out of a bunch,
Yeah, they pay for like the ones I've come across and worked with. It's like, the rent's 600 and the government pays for, 525. They pay 75 bucks, something like that. It's a great deal for them. Good deal for the owner. So I'm not, I wouldn't be against it because these people are no different than anybody else. It's just, you just get
sometimes you get a bad
crappy
apple.
people, that are on Section 8 or not, so it's just,
Yep.
it's a people thing, which
Yeah.
you run into.
What's kind of the 80-20 rule? So 20% of the time you might get burned, no matter how much due diligence you do on a tenant. That one I didn't.
You sold it though.
I did.
Yeah.
I sold
To
it
somebody here, right?
I sold it to, she's now here. Jeannie Gessinger bought it.
Yeah.
But at the time she lived in Washington and Mike Brown was her agent and he represented her and she bought my apartment complex. We didn't know each other. When she moved here to KW, we sat down, we were swapping apartment house stories. And she mentioned she owned a 12 unit in Camdenton. And I was like, I used to own a 12 unit in Camdenton. And then it turns out it's the same property and she's still got it. And it's still cash flowing great for her. And now she's managing it herself. So. Anything else? We're getting 2:24. So we've been a bit.
Let's wrap it up. Okay.
Yeah. So it all depends on the amount of damage they do. I mean, that particular unit, we had 3 or 4 people up there cleaning for a good weekend. We repainted the entire unit. We had to recarpet the entire unit. We had to get bug people to come out. So it probably cost me a couple grand, maybe $2,000.
It's always going to cost you money, like it just, and believe it or not, if you have one property, it's a lot more devastating when you have a shitty tenant that tears your house up. If you had 100 of them, you don't even care because the more you get, the more you make. And you can afford to just absorb stuff much
Mhm.
easier. Well, it's no different than if you make $100 a week, it's tough. If you make 100,000 a week, as long as you keep yourself in check, things are going to be pretty easy for you financially. So it's no different. The property's paying for itself, though. If
Yeah.
you're buying a cash flowing asset and you buy it right, it's absorbing it for you. So Chelsea's not paying for it; the property's paying for it.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's what you're getting at, but it was always a hang up for me initially. It was like, damn it, I got to do this and that, but it's like, oh, well, I'm not paying for it. My sales business isn't paying for it. My home flipping business isn't paying for it. The account with the money that rental the rent goes in, that's paying for it.
Mhm.
And so that's different. Do you get what I'm saying?
So we're not spending our cash flow every month and, going to Tahiti with it. Like, you're reinvesting and you're setting aside a cushion and you're setting aside money for whatever may come up, and you have contingencies so that when those things do happen, you got something to pull from. Uh-huh. We're fine because it was a 12 unit. So, even when we have a vacancy and we had, one or two people that were causing trouble, we still had 8 or 9 tenants that we were getting the rent on. So it always took care of itself. And I kind of wish I hadn't sold it to Jeannie and just hired a property manager, but Camdenton's like its own universe. That's all I'm going to say about that.
So to put it into perspective on like my portfolio I have now, I have all my renewals hit in around May, June, July, because it's the hot time. If somebody's going to move out of my property, I want them to move out during that time so I can re-rent it easily for the most amount of money. So in those 3 months, generally I'm running around 15 or 16% on expenses because people move out, new tenants move in. And then when they do, you got to fix this and that, right, to make them happy. But generally, it's around 10% a month in additional expenses. But again, it's not Zach paying for it. It's those properties, they're all paying for it itself. So you're always going to have expenses, but the sooner you sort of get to having multiple units, because you're not going to have a problem at every property every month, right? You're going to have a property that has one problem, and then for 5 months it doesn't. And the 5 months it doesn't, you're collecting money. And then you'll have this property that doesn't for that 5. Do you get what I'm saying? And then it just keeps building. Before you know it, you have enough money in there, you're like, well, it's fine. Something's gonna break, you pay for it. You know what I mean? As long as it's cash flowing. If it's not cash flowing, then Chelsea's paying for it. And so that's. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not like what you would expect. That's more of just stories from people that you probably don't need to listen to. It's not true. Things will break, but
Screen the tenants. Just screen your tenants, or have a good property management company that does, and then trust your gut. If something doesn't feel quite right, if they are currently staying with friends and family and don't have a landlord, there's a reason for it. And if they don't have any rental references to provide to you, there's a reason for it. And if you go on CaseNet and you see previous evictions, automatic out. Right?
Yeah, it's all about picking the right people. I am like no nonsense with that. So I really don't have many I can only think of maybe 2 or 3 times where I've had a shitty tenant we've had to I've only had to evict one, and it was on my very first property. The very, very first one that was part of the deal is like, you got to deal with the tenant. And so that was part of my nervousness. But overall, it's if you pick good people, and it's not that hard. It's like, do you check these boxes? And if you do, cool. There's a good chance it's going to work out fine. And it usually does.
You had one of your tenants that moved out of a house.
Uh-huh. Oh, really? Uh-huh.
I'll pay 6 months in advance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why? That sounds good, like a bunch of money.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. It's like they can't manage themselves, so they do that. Yeah, that's a big red flag. Which one was it? Do you remember?
On Galvin.
Oh my gosh, she was awful. Which I kicked her out before, or no, maybe she was there a week after I bought it, but yeah, bad news. We
Mhm.
talked, didn't we? Did we talk about it? Yeah, now I remember. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming today.
Yeah.
I know it was kind of random, but I feel like we addressed
And I
a
feel
lot
like
of
it
different
kinda
things.
is. We're
Yeah.
not professional teachers here. Okay.
Here's-
That's not what we do.
Here's the thing. If you guys feel like there is a topic that you want to see covered, please let us know, because we're pretty flexible and we get together and we say, what do you think would benefit everybody the most? And we really felt like mindset was the big key for this conversation today. But if you have suggestions, we're open to it. Like, what do you want to learn? We're all in this together.
Yeah. Start listening to podcasts every day instead of music.
Mhm. Thank you. I don't know how to. I don't know what to do. So it says recording. I'm gonna click on that. If I go leave,